Welcome back, my fully armed friends. Hope everybody's doing well. Today's episode, super excited about this one. So I've been pals with Jimmy Herman, fiddle player extraordinaire, for probably 20 years. We've done so many shows together. Jimmy spent a lot of years, over a decade, on the road with Carrie Underwood. And in the meantime, became friends with her husband, Mike Fisher. And I think they spent some time hunting, and we'll talk a little bit about that stuff. But he was so nice to ask Mike if he would join us on Fully Armed. He accepted, and we got to hang out for an hour and just have the greatest conversation. So Mike is, of course, a former NHL star. He finished his career with the Nashville Predators, where they actually went to the Stanley Cup finals, almost won the darn thing. But we have a great conversation today. I do have to confess to a typo. I was trying to explain something in this episode about Genesis, and I said Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, which was most certainly not the correct one. Genesis chapter 9, verse 2. When you get there, you'll know what I'm talking about. I hope you guys enjoy this episode today. If you do, share it with your friends. Please press the subscribe button, and don't forget we have a Patreon membership. You guys can become members of Fully Armed. So here we go. Mike Fisher, Jimmy Herman, Fully Armed. We'll see you on the backside.
Welcome to the Fully Armed Podcast with Chris Hennessee. You got your armor on?
Today on Fully Armed, I've got my old pal Jimmy Herman. Good to see you, Jim.
Good to see you, Chris.
And my new pal Mike Fisher. How are you, sir?
Doing good.
It's good to see you, man. Thanks for joining us. And I don't think I've told you about the fact that this is Miss Judy that we're sitting in right here. Miss Judy is old Winnebago. And it's a very windy day today.
Yes, it is.
So if anybody that's watching this sees us grabbing a hold of something, there's a chance we're rolling.
We're not on the ocean.
We're not on the ocean. But it's when we're recording this today, it's March. And I've always said that the Tennessee weather in March is just drunk. Mm-hmm. It staggers and it doesn't know where it's going. And then that's what's going on today. But it's great to have you guys. So one might ask oneself, what does a fella who is a former professional hockey player, a fella who is an outstanding musician from Wisconsin, and me have in common? And the answer is there's a few things, but number one is Christ. It is our faith in Jesus. And number two, we all like to hunt, man.
That's right.
So we're going to talk about both of those things along with many other things. But just to kind of recap, born in Ontario, Canada, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
So if you'll give me just like a Cliff Notes version. I know where you're from generally, but what happened from there?
I grew up in Peterborough, Ontario,
Yeah.
north of Toronto, and a couple of brothers and a sister, and we were both my parents met at Bible camp.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I had a great upbringing, and church was important. Faith was very important.
Yeah.
We all played sports, so it was a busy household, and my mom's side of the family, big hunters. That's where I get it.
Really?
My dad hunted a little bit, but so pretty normal upbringing. I obviously loved to play hockey and loved to hunt whenever I could, which wasn't that often. But I left home at 17 to go play in Sudbury, and then played professional at 19 for a number of years.
Yeah.
And, but there's a lot to my story as far as, God doing a lot of different things and making a lot of mistakes and along the way. But he put a lot of good people in my life too to help me. That's for sure. Because without that, man, Lord knows where I'd be. So
how about that? So right off the bat, when I hear that, I hear foundation. Right, you're talking about your parents and that foundation was built, and then you go to say, went through some low points, and like that's where the foundation comes in handy, right?
Train up a child in the way they should go. I was reading that this morning.
There it is.
When they're old, they won't depart from it. And that's kind of my story for sure.
Yeah, and that's another thing that the three of us have in common is we're all boy dads. You threw a girl in the mix. But absolutely.
He's a softer for sure with the girl.
Yeah.
But we're just like the hard boy
dads.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Although I've been around his whole family a lot. We're very close, and the girl adds an extra little bit of grit in there. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So, Jimmy Herman, You and I have known each other for 20 years. We met on stage,
Roughly, right?
literally met on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And we have done a lot of gigs since then.
A lot of miles.
A lot of
for
miles.
Sure. Yeah.
And back in 2020, matter of fact, because I'll talk about where you're from, I traveled to your hometown, the metropolis that is Whitehall. Well,
Wisconsin, yeah.
Wisconsin,
Right.
but I'm not saying it right, though, because Tennessee guy says Whitehall, and I hear your mom say it much different than the way I just
Yeah.
said it. Yeah.
My northern accent's probably worn off a bit, but it's Whitehall.
But she says
Whitehall.
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 Yeah, you're gonna go down there. And anyway, so yeah, we did. Man, we went down there and we spent a lot of time. I got lost. It's such a big. It's not a big town. It's a very small town, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of deer down there too. We'll get
Big
into
deer.
that, or up there, I should say. We'll get into that. But yeah, man. So we've talked a lot about it before. But what was your upbringing?
Well, I grew up on a dairy farm in west central Wisconsin, and we grew up Lutheran.
Yeah.
Up there, so I played in church since they'd put me up on the piano bench, and I'd be sawing away, go tell it on the mountain or something, so I grew up, my grandma was the organist in the church and was one of the janitors too, so we were in church all the time.
Yeah.
Growing up.
And you played sports too, right? You played baseball,
Yeah,
football.
baseball, football,
Yeah.
wrestled, all that stuff.
Yeah. Did you play any other sports, or was hockey just like bam? That was it.
I played baseball.
Yeah.
I love baseball. I stopped playing baseball because I would play hockey in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So it became all year round. But
Yeah.
I played a little bit of basketball in school, and then high school volleyball. I played
right
high school
on.
hockey just so I could play with my older brother.
Yeah.
But high school sports in Canada is not as serious as down here.
So would it be more like if you're going to play hockey in your teens and you're going to go do like we would call
You're
travel
gonna do
ball?
travel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I played
Yeah.
minor system, AAA, all the way up. So a lot of travel. But travel for us, it's not like here where you're traveling tournaments every weekend. There, it's so many good teams close by. We'd
Yeah.
hop on a bus and, on a school night go play,
Right.
So
Speaking of which, I didn't plan to go this route, but so as you knew, I played with Jamie for a long time, Jamie Johnson, and we did a show in Calgary at one of the casinos up there. This has been quite a few years back, and talk about a different world. So, and of course, Calgary's much different than the eastern part of the country where you grew up, but which I'm not telling you anything. But we did the gig in this casino, and when the gig was over, a lot of times they would have food for us at the at the restaurant or bar or whatever for after show food. I think we were spending the night, so it's like 11:30 at night, and we go to the club to get some food, and there's this big plexiglass wall in this club at this casino in Calgary, and there's a giant hockey arena out there, hockey rink. And they're playing. They're not just out there like it's grown men out there at 11:30 at night, and then they shake hands, and the whole new bunch comes on. So they're starting a new game at 11:30 on a Thursday night.
they're committed.
They're committed.
Yeah.
And I thought, now that's a whole different deal. There's not a whole lot of basketball games in the States that break out at midnight. Not that I'm familiar with, anyways.
We're serious about hockey.
You are.
Yeah,
You're
we
serious about it. Yes. So to put it into perspective a little bit more for folks who might be checking the show out, Jimmy and I knew each other for many years, and Jimmy played with Carrie Underwood for 10 years, right?
Right.
Give or
a little
take.
over a decade, yeah.
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 And that's how you guys met ultimately. And so that's how the three of us came to be. So, but what we did find out was that we all enjoy hunting. And right before we came in here, we were talking about our kids and taking them out, and Jet, which is Jimmy's son, just killed just a big old 12-pointer last year, and then my son killed his first one with the bow, and your oldest, you just showed a video, and he had a pretty nice one.
That was
too.
my youngest. That
Your
was
youngest.
his first
That's
with
right.
the gun. But my oldest, he likes to hunt too.
Yeah, that's great, man.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about growing up hunting in Canada, especially in that neck of the woods up there, you said your mom's side of the family. Like, what were you guys hunting? What were you after?
Well, mostly just deer, and
Yeah.
we hunted with dogs. So, and it's during the rut, basically, the rifle season. We didn't bow hunting. No one really bow hunted that I knew back then, And but we'd hunt with dogs. So it was an hour and a half north to get a few days off of school to be able to go like once a year, work it around hockey schedule, and that was like the best thing ever. I'd go with my dad, you know.
Yeah.
And then my brother would kind of switch off and do different days too. But I'll never forget the first, deer my dad shot that I was there, and the first deer I shot when I think I was 14. Canada, you can't hunt. Like Tennessee, Kentucky, you can hunt when you're 5, 6.
Yeah.
Tennessee's
Right, yes.
6.
Yeah.
Canada's like 12.
Oh,
to get your
really?
License.
Yep.
Well, I think I was 14. I think you get your license now. You have to be with someone. It's too late. By the time the kids, they're into other things, they're doing all the other things. Like, they do it right down here for sure.
That's a big difference, isn't it? Once you
Yeah,
hit
I mean,
12,
my boys
13.
they love it now
Yeah.
because you get them going early, and so.
So that's a good point, because I remember being 12 and 13, and like, man, your mind gets diverted to many other things at that point,
Yeah, if you're not.
Well,
Yeah.
and two, you have to have gone along with someone as a youngster hunting. Like if, let's say, if the kid's parent never hunted but they wanted to hunt, right? They had to wait till they're 12 years old, right? If they didn't go out with someone from their 4, 5, 6, 7 and up, they wouldn't have any of those experiences. You know what I mean? They're starting out cold.
Yeah.
So which is very intimidating, because to some kids that grew up around their parents that have hunted, a 12-year-old that's never hunted, it's going to be very intimidated to even show other people that they're interested, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so I knew coming into this I had to be careful, because I'll look at my watch and an hour later we're just talking about deer hunting, and I got to be careful because I know I will bring up a story that Jimmy mentioned to me one time. So and I hope you don't mind me kind of going into this a little bit, but when you got married, hunting was something sort of new for your wife as far as that's concerned. And then Jimmy was saying that maybe you guys were in like Canada or something like that, and there was kind of a funny story that happened with that. Wasn't there like a picture involved or something like that? Do you remember that one?
It was on do you remember a bear hunt? There was a bear hunt.
Was it?
We went up there
Oh,
and went to your little home country store.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And we went on this bear hunt.
That's right.
And
I forgot.
we went on the bear hunt, got a bear, and then later that night, I'm sitting on the bus, and Mike comes up, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you'll never believe it, but the woman, this is a little tiny country store in the middle of nowhere, like Ontario, right?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "You'll never believe it." He goes, "That woman was in meet and greet tonight, and she had a picture. She had a picture of us all together."
No, all of you were in the picture with the bear.
We were we were all there in this little. It was very small, and I guess we all took a picture together, maybe with her.
Yeah,
and then and it was like probably an hour drive or something to wherever we were
and
playing.
she's in the meet and greet.
And she's in the meet and greet
this
line,
picture.
and she has the picture for Carrie to sign. For Carrie to sign.
Yeah, I imagine back then she would that would have been not great, but yeah.
Well, here's
I think she liked it. I
Yeah.
think she liked it.
well,
Yeah. She's okay seeing pictures. She doesn't want to see, or like she knows that, obviously there's some first few years of marriage was tension,
yeah,
right? She grew up, her dad hunted, right?
Mhm.
And that's a passion of mine. So when those things kind of collide after, honeymoon, it's like, well, you're going to still hunt. And I'm like, you're going to not let me, but so if I'm being honest, it was tough,
yeah. Well,
but,
I mean, that's part of the process, right?
Yeah, but the things that God did, just like trying to figure out a way and kind of wrestling with it, and I'll never forget. So I'd wrestled this with one of my mentors, and I was like, I don't like this, so much tension. She hates hunting, and I absolutely love it. How's this going to work out?
Yes.
So praying through that, and then talking with my good friend and mentor Tim, and he's like, I think she needs to know that she's more important than hunting. So one fall, I said, okay, honey, I'm not going to hunt because you need to know that you're more important. This went against everything I wanted to do, but I felt like it was the right thing to do. So I didn't. And now, mind you, I'm playing hockey, so it's not like I'm out hunting all the time. But what that did was she couldn't believe it. She's like, really? Like and some of my buddies are like, "You're gonna let her not? What? Are you serious?" But what that did next season, she's like, I don't want to be the reason why you don't do what you love to do. Go ahead and do it. And we kind of made compromises on, she realized that, hunting meat and doing that is good, and where, where your meat's coming from, it's healthy. It's, kind of what God intended us to do. And so kind of working through that. And then I thought the next battle was going to be kids.
Yeah.
Taking my boys hunting.
All right.
But God worked through all that in ways that now I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah.
At the time, I was like, where is this going to go?
Yeah.
But it was just, I had to she had to know that, you know what, you're more important. She is. I mean, but then she realized that God used it all. And it's kind of a cool story.
Man.
But,
Right.
I got I got cold chills, and I got to tell you why. I intentionally put Jimmy on the spot because he told me that story a long time ago, and I'm like, let's just throw it out there and see what happens. But it led me to this, while you were saying that, man, I got cold chills because I started thinking about the relationship and why it is that the New Testament is so vivid in explaining why Christ is the husband and we are the bride and the church, right? I mean, am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, you're right.
And the fact that when you're married, and we're so blessed. I'll just say it right up front. Like I know I am. I know we all are. But man, it's not like you just walk into it and everything just click, click, click. It all works out great. But man, that correlation between the church and Christ and husband and wife is so strong. And what you just said, man, was so paralleled with that. Like we have what we want, what you like to do. She has what she likes to do. They butt heads. They don't go together. But you sacrifice. It's like fasting, right? So you fasted and you showed her, I love you. And so it's almost like it's interesting that Jesus is like, that's what I want you to sacrifice for me. And then I'll give you the desires of your heart, right? Yeah. So, man, the way marriage between husband and wife correlates with that. It just gave me cold chills thinking about it. So I'm glad we brought it up like we did.
And too, I think for the three of us too, it's important to God that we're equally yoked with our partner, right? So, I mean, he knows the desires of our hearts, right? And how we'll make something an idol at times, right? But to surrender it, something like that, whether it be hunting or music or whatever, you surrender it. And it's amazing how God will take the husband and the wife and yoke you up, right? Yeah. Kind of balance you out, like you're willing to give on the hunting side of things. And then she sees your sacrifice and is like, well, I want you to be there too. And it brings you here. And it's like that triangle I've seen of the husband and the wife and God, right? And the closer you get yoked and go up, the closer you are to God, right? Yeah. So it's pretty amazing how God works that way.
I love the vision of yoke. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If one gets out of whack,
Yep.
That's
He's got a way of balancing it out.
My yoke is easy and my burden is light. You know that song?
Yeah. Well, we need to go through these things too, right?
Yeah.
These struggles, and that's how God just, that's where he does his best work usually when we're kind of, going through struggles.
Yeah,
for sure.
He does.
And the other thing is, like, if you don't go through the struggles, you can't share it with other people too, because what we go through, we'll run into someone that's struggling with something too, and like, hey, I've been there, or we know what has worked for us, what God's done, and you share that with them, plant the seed, and then the next thing you know, now their life's changed.
Yeah. Man, that's good stuff right there. Selflessness, it seems to me, becomes the key to all of it, especially in relationships like that. Yeah. Like learning to give up oneself and then therefore realizing that you're fulfilled by caring more about the other person. Scriptural, right? It all is. Yep. So your family, you're talking about your mom and dad, and you grew up in a Christian home. So you basically, you gave your life to the Lord, and everything was smooth sailing from that point on.
Oh,
right?
Isn't it always?
Yeah, no problem.
No, I accepted Christ when I was 6, kind of, in Christian home, and But I never wanted to get baptized because you'd have to get in front of church and give your testimony and get baptized. And I was like, I'm not standing up in front of church.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put this off. But God had a different plan. But I left home when I was 17 years old to go 4 hours north to play junior hockey. And then I didn't have a church family, or my own family billeted with another family. And I struggled. Like I started drinking, trying to fit in with, we played with 16 to 20-year-olds and, started.
Is this late 90s, like mid-late 90s?
That'd be 97.
Okay. Yeah. So is it a culture? Of course, I grew up mostly around baseball. That's, and there's definitely a culture of, especially when you're 17, 18, 22 years old, like you're living it up.
Yeah. And hockey culture it's in Canada's, I wouldn't say it's the greatest. So, but I struggled. And it was a lot of that, when you're leaving, I'm just a young kid, 17 years old. And it's like, I'm the Christian that's just not trying to drink, not trying to have sex, not trying to do all the things because that's what you're supposed to do. Right.
Right.
Meanwhile, inside you're not.
Right.
Like you're just struggling. Right.
Yeah.
So that lasted, my first few years in the NHL too.
Yeah.
Just girls and partying and but there's nothing like, when someone knows the truth, like a believer that is in that sin, like the guilt and shame, takes a long time to figure that out. But,
that next morning, right? Those next mornings when you wake up,
there's nothing. It's the worst. But luckily, I had my cousin who was 7 years older. I ended up living with my second year in the NHL, and he knew that everything I was going through, and we started just doing a Bible study, praying together, and working through stuff, and I recommitted my life to the Lord. Then I was baptized at 22, and that was the first time in my life where I really felt the Holy Spirit. Like, okay, this is so
it reminds me of Nashville. Like you come from a small town. We both did. You move to town, and there's just this culture, especially surrounding the kind of music we like. Country music. There's a culture surrounding it that's like, here's what you do. And if you don't do this, you're going to miss out, because late night, that's when all of the interactions happen, and that's where you meet the people, and it's like, man, there's definitely a struggle that goes on in there. And it sounds like it's similar with that too. So was there a moment for you where you're like, all right, that's enough of this. I know what my roots are, and it's time to,
Well, I remember I remember doing the Bible studies called Firm Foundation. It was in a church that we'd both gone to. That's what we're working through. And I remember getting to Luke 9:24-25. It says, "You want to be a follower of me, you must put aside your own selfish ambition, shoulder your cross daily, and follow me."
Yes, sir.
If you want to give up, or if you want to, if you try to keep your life for yourself, you'll lose it. But if you give up your life for me, you will find true life. What do you benefit if you gain the whole world and lose your own soul in the process? And that's exactly because I was making great money and lived my dream, top of the mountain, but like the worst inside.
Yeah.
So I got to that point, and I was like, I can't. I knew the truth, and I needed to, surrender that, pray through it, and repent, and I had someone right beside me. Without him, like, we all need people beside us working through our darkest moments. And I had so much shame because everyone knew I was the Christian hockey player from Canada, everyone in the country, right? But I'm trying to live up to something that people thought I was, when inside that wasn't me. I was like, and that's not that. I believe I was saved, but I was not living a life that, honored the Lord. And at that point in my life, probably my picture of God was definitely different than it is now, because I kind of thought he was always mad at me, and
how about that?
I was like, oh crap, I'm just a piece of crap, but that's definitely changed.
Isn't it interesting where that's coming from? Because it ain't coming from him.
No.
Maybe there's somebody that's listening to this needs to hear this. So we all grew up similarly, good firm foundation. And then when you stray away from that, I don't think there's different levels of straying. I used to think, I didn't go too far off it's spiritual, it's a spiritual battle that's raging. And as soon as I feel like, and not to give credit to the enemy, but I think as soon as the enemy sees, he might have heard something or he's catching on to something. I always think of Screw Tape Letters. I don't know if you guys ever read that, C.S. Lewis, but the enemy is like smart and is like, well, last case scenario, the only thing I've got left is shame, guilt, because how could you have done this, And it's an unreasonable oftentimes, where you're like, I just feel, I'm not worthy, and it's like that's exactly what he wants, right? And if he can keep us in those handcuffs long enough, we might fall back away and might fall back into the thing. So there's definitely a struggle that happens in that case. Anyways, from my perspective, it is.
Yeah, I think our picture of God is, and who we really believe he is one of the most important things about us,
Yeah.
And that's distorted in a lot of ways, can get distorted pretty easily.
Yeah.
Sure.
Which is, that affects our identity and our, but.
It does.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's going to sound like at this point that I'm like changing gears. I'm not going to change gears off of faith. We're going to stay on that. But I do have a hunting question for you, though. You can only pick one. All right. So you got. Now, I know maybe have you duck hunted your whole life, or is that?
No, fairly new since I retired.
Okay. Because all the ducks leave where you grew up and come down here.
I know.
So
it's like, come on, push them down.
But so you can go deer hunting, elk hunting, or duck hunting, but you can only pick one of them, like for the next 2 years. What are you going to go with?
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. You be thinking about it because I'm going to ask you too.
Probably going to be, might surprise you, probably duck hunting because of my boys. And where it's the hunt part's relational.
I get it.
Now, if it's just me
Yeah.
without my boys and they're older, I'd probably want to go elk hunting with my boys if they could come.
Yeah.
But now my hunting's just around them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about
That's
you?
where I get my joy. But.
I hear you. I would probably choose elk hunting
Yeah.
over anything, yes.
You're the first person that's one of my buddies that went out and elk hunted. Matter of fact, you told me your first elk hunt was not successful, I don't think.
Right.
But it was pretty interesting, right? Like you just loaded up and you went by yourself, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. It was like 2003. I loaded up the truck and went out to Wyoming, way up in the Teton, like out past the Tetons, and just filled a backpack and went and set up camp for a week. And it just happened to be about 75, 80 degrees.
Oh,
and
no. Which
the
is
elk
good for
were
camping.
So high,
but,
yes,
yeah.
but the elk were so high, on the mountain. Like I think I saw 2 elk the whole season.
Yeah.
But it was awesome.
But
Jimmy's the real hunter.
Well,
like
I
he's
don't know about
the
that.
yes.
traditional
It's all
bow.
relative.
I mean, no.
I think we've got
It's
it all
like
covered.
we look at Jimmy as like he's the real hunter.
Yeah. Well, we've got all the bases covered.
Yeah.
We've got me who, I'm not really going to be upset if I'm sitting in a shooting blind with a little heater over here. Not that I would do it all the
I
time.
don't mind that either.
Yeah.
With a high-powered 300 Win Mag, that I'll shoot something that's half a mile away. And then I think that maybe you might be the next level. You're going to go out there and you're going to shoot like, the compound and, going bow hunt and that stuff. But then we got Tarzan over here.
Jeremiah Johnson over here.
Yeah, no, Jeremiah Johnson never did what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, he didn't even
He
do
didn't
that.
hang. So you climb up a tree with bare feet, take your boots off, put them over your shoulder, climb up the tree. I'm making that part up. But it sounds, you don't do that, do you?
I've only done it twice.
Hang this crazy saddle up there, and you're just you
Right.
can go 360 around the tree, right?
Right, in theory, yeah.
With a crossbow. No,
Definitely not a crossbow.
No.
Definitely not.
No, he's never had one. Never will.
never touched
No.
one.
I honestly have never touched one.
Never touched
I don't even think I've it. I'd be like a 15-year-old holding a baby. I'm like, what is this? What is this thing?
Nah, you're shooting traditional.
Yeah, I shoot. Yeah, traditional archery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, man. You've got done really well.
Yeah.
But you're still going to
successful.
choose. You're going to go with elk.
Elk
hunting.
hunting and traditional archery.
Traditional
Yeah,
archery elk hunting.
Right.
So they come up and breathe on you before you
Yeah,
shoot.
they got to be. Right here.
Yeah.
I don't have a good experience with my compound, not traditional with
Yeah.
elk. I haven't shot one. I missed one though at like 15 yards.
You did?
Because I get so amped up.
I get it,
Like
hard
my
not to.
goodness. And we worked 5 days. My guide, worked so hard to get close, we go 15 yards. And this is the last morning. And I'm like getting ready. He's like, okay. And it was like 15 yards broadside. And I smoked the tree right next to him. I couldn't keep it together. I'll never forget. My guide looks back. He's like, what the world? Well, I had a glove on because it was cold that morning. I didn't take it off, and I feel like maybe I jerked the trigger, and I was nervous, and I was like, "Oh, I can't believe I smoked the tree." And arrow is still probably in that tree
today.
You can't get it out.
You're not getting that out.
Oh, there's nothing like the rush of an elk that close. If you've never done it, oh my!
So they call it in.
Like there's nothing like it.
Well, and so you guys obviously you called it in, right?
Yeah.
And so what's it like that last minute to 30 seconds?
I don't remember anything. It's like it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it was the biggest elk you've ever seen, I'm sure.
And it's like I want to shoot one with my bow, but I'm like, I don't want to miss again either.
Yeah,
I get
it's
it.
like,
I get it.
But it's
we
fun.
We could do a whole show just talking about missing and what that does to you, because it is devastating. I don't think people that have never really hunted realize what it feels like to have that happen and miss, and then have to live with it for
Or wounding's worse.
Well, that is worse.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm glad I killed
missed.
the aspen tree. They called me the aspen assassin after that. They did. I still get it every once in a while.
That's great. That's tough, man. But I can't imagine being so. I just told Jimmy I've only been elk hunting once, and I didn't draw a bull tag. I drew a cow tag, and so I've shot, but from a great distance. It was 200, 250 yards or whatever. But seeing them up close and in the wild like that, especially the bulls. I didn't get up close to a bull, but still, though, that is an impressive animal.
Oh man, yeah.
Unreal.
And they taste great.
So good. It's my favorite.
Right? It's the best.
Yeah.
You can get a big old ruddy bull and it tastes good.
Really?
No, it's not like a whitetail or a mule deer where you get an old buck. It might be a little chewy, but man, those elk are awesome. It's great meat.
I just got it last week. So back in January, I killed the cow, and then I had to fly home the next day. So sent it to a processor, and my buddy that was coming from there just brought it this week. So I'm like just dumping just giant gobs of elk meat into my freezer. Barely held it, so I haven't dug into it yet. I'm excited about it. But yeah, we're talking about kids and getting them involved in hunting, and so my answer at this point is so much different than it once would have been, because like you guys said, if it's just me personally, I like deer hunting. I grew up quail hunting, which there's not hardly any quail left in Tennessee, but there were a lot when I was a kid. But if I had to pick right now, man, I love going pheasant hunting because my boys go with me. They're 10 and 13, and they walk right beside me, and it's just hooping and hollering and shooting, and it's just, I love it. Same thing as duck hunting, probably, right, as far as the camaraderie goes. So, but all of my gears switched whenever the boys were old enough, and I'm like, and just the same thing with Jet, right? I mean, you took him out this year.
Like he shot his compound this year, and I obviously offered up the recurve to see if he wanted to shoot that, but he's 13, and I told him, I'm like, well, you can, as long as you can pull 40 pounds, I'll let you go. Yeah. And he practiced 2-3 times a day, and I just kept, and it would just keep cranking those limbs up, and I think 45 pounds, I think he tapped out at, and sure enough, he drilled a big old 12-pointer on his compound.
That's awesome.
That's really cool, man. So, coming back into Scripture, I wrote down a couple, or didn't write down a couple of things. I screenshot a couple of things because I know a lot of times, and I'll be honest with you now, if I'm just going to be straight up honest, there's been a time or two that I have killed something, whether it was we used to coon hunt when I was a kid, or squirrels, little fuzzy squirrels, or deer or whatever. There's been a few times back through the years where I'm like, man, it's one of God's creatures. And I've sort of debated with myself, what's the deal? So I'm not trying to read Scripture just to justify our actions, but it was very clear to me in the very first of Genesis, like chapter 1, it says verse 2, and he's talking to is that right? Genesis 1. I don't know if that's the right one or not, but he's talking to Noah, right? When Noah came off the ark, And he says, the fear and dread of you, of man, will fall on all the beasts of the earth and on all the birds in the sky, on every creature that moves along the ground, and on all the fish in the sea. And they are given into your hands. Everything that lives and moves about will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. And I remember reading that and being like, there it is. It's very simple.
Yep.
And also, which this will be a show for the next time, part 2, it also leads me to realize how he got all them rascals on that boat. They weren't afraid of him.
Exactly.
They're like, do we go with you? Yeah, come on. All right. And I'm like, I'm an alligator, and he's like, it's okay. Come on. And apparently when they got, out of the ark, they're like, okay, now we better run. This guy's going to eat us because there's nothing left.
Right. Right.
But I thought that was really interesting reading through that, and then I started thinking a little more about it. And there's a place in Acts where Peter goes to sleep, and he's in a trance, it says, and then God says, "Here, go and eat." But I also think that was referencing also Gentiles, right? Do y'all know the verse I'm talking about? So Acts chapter 10, 9 through 23. And it's Peter, and it says about noon the following day, as they were on their journey and approaching the city, Peter went up to the roof to pray. He became hungry and wanted something to eat, and while the meal was being prepared, he fell into a trance. He saw heaven open and something like a large sheet being let down to earth by its four corners. I heard somebody one time saying that was like a movie screen coming down. That's pretty interesting. And it contained all kinds of four-footed animals as well as reptiles and birds. Then the voice told him, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." And Peter said, "Surely not, Lord. I've never eaten anything impure or unclean." The voice spoke to him a second time. "Do not call anything impure that God has made clean." So when I first kind of looked for that and found it, I thought, yeah, that's referencing hunting as well. And then I realized, man, he's talking about Jews and Gentiles right there. I think he's saying, go minister to those people, because anything I've made is of me, Yeah. So he spoke to me through that, and I was just looking for some hunting references,
Right.
Well, he talks about the dominion. He's given us dominion over all the animals, which is, to me, you think about dominion, and it's like, control. But I think to me, it's about respecting, which when I have boys, I think the way I kind of grew up is like, I just want to shoot stuff, didn't worry much about eating.
Right, yeah.
It was just like, it was kind of ingrained in me. But as you get older, it's like I'm trying to teach my boys, like, yeah, these are given to us from God. We have to respect the animal. We have to enjoy the process, and we eat everything we shoot. We don't waste stuff. Right. There's such a process, which Carrie reminds me all the time that, same thing. It's like we have to be very intentional on teaching them the whole process, not just the kill, because that's not the point, But the process of hunting, to me, with boys is the best. Like, if we want to mentor and, teach our boys, what better way in a stand, in nature, right? And through like, the disappointment too of like that I've worked through with my boys of not seeing something, missing something, wounding something, and like, it's great opportunities. And then when we do get a blessing of a harvest, thanking the Lord, and now I'm at the point where my boys remind me sometimes, because I was intentional when they're young. It's like, the last one, Isaiah's like, I was so amped up, and I was just like, thank you, Lord. And I was like, usually I was, but he's, sometimes you need those reminders, of the gift of hunting too, right? And God knows what he was doing, because a lot of us, we know that like, I was born this way,
Yes.
God instilled this in me, and what better way to, enjoy something with our sons where we can teach them life lessons and teach them about our Creator. But,
There's just something about hunting with your boys and mentoring them, out in nature that they can't get with anyone else, really. Like, even if their mom took them hunting, like, it's a total different thing with, if you're out with your sons.
Well, and it's the process of the hunting, obviously, and the excitement in that. But then, like we were talking about, the finding the deer and the field dressing the deer.
And the work just begins.
Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah.
And then quartering it. So the same place that we went hunting with Jet last year, my buddy's place, my son and nephews, we all went, like took the nephews on their first hunt. They were all, at this point, 10 years old. And within 30 minutes, all three of them, so there's twins and my son, had all killed bucks. Bam, bam, bam. And with every bam, I'm like so excited, but also going, oh, I got a lot of work to do now. So that whole night, we got 3 deer hung up. The next day, we're skinning them out, doing all that stuff, you know. But that process too, you know, that's man, what a binding process with your kids that is. Yeah. And fish, and then birds, and then, you know, turkey. You're into turkey hunting as well, right? I forgot about that one. I might need to throw that into the
coming
mix.
Up here soon.
It is coming up soon. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not turkey hunting.
So I got
today,
a good turkey story about
Yeah.
my youngest. We were hunting turkey. You know, he uses normally a 410, and I'll put it in a bog pod in a blind. Like, he can't sit still, but he can diaphragm turkey call.
Oh wow,
you know that.
That's
like
awesome.
pretty good. Like, he'll just run around the house, duck call, turkey calls, everything. He's like into it.
Yeah.
And so I decided, you know what? We kind of been out of range on some birds. I'm gonna give him a 28 gauge. But if I hold it in a bog pod, he's good. It's a red dot, perfect for kids. You know. All right, here we go. So he start. You know, we had a bird coming in, and I get so amped up, and it's coming in. Boom. Like, all right, here we go. And it drops the bird. I look over, cut all the way. The corner of the sliced. I didn't hold the bog pod.
Oh no.
And I'm looking, and like, serious cut.
Yeah.
So I look over. I can show you a video after of him. Didn't even, like, he got fired up. He's like, oh, Dad. I take this video of him, and I felt sick.
That's pretty awesome.
10 stitches.
Oh
10
no!
stitches.
Oh, that's
wow.
not very awesome. I didn't realize
10
that.
So I have to go back, carries it home,
Oh no.
come in the door, and I'm like, the look on her face. It's like, are you kidding? And I felt terrible, and she knew it, and she's like, okay, I know it's all good. And like the picture of this with him, but he was like, you know, he didn't cry at all, and it was
That's
like,
awesome.
you know.
That just goes to show the excitement
but-
level of doing something
I know,
like that.
you get it. It's like,
Man.
but I felt terrible. But anyway, 28 gauge was a little much.
Well, hold on. Was it?
Little over.
Because, I mean, what happened with
he killed the turkey.
Okay, so it worked.
But now you barely see the scar.
Yeah, but
It's
hold
got
on. I
some-
got to tell you, how cool is it to go through your whole life? I mean, let's say there's a nice scar there. And it
I
was a
know.
tough situation,
Yeah.
but to be like, how'd you get that? But the correlation, like, with that in life, and I think about sports, too. Like, watching your kids play sports. Now, we're not trying to get all, like, worked up and, you know, my kid's 13 and he's going to go play, you know, in the NFL. I don't really play into that too much. But the lessons that they learn in sports, and for me particularly baseball, just because that's the way I grew up and what I'm used to. And my youngest son plays a lot of baseball, and there's so much disappointment in it. You know, like most of the time you're going to be out. And I think hockey probably is. You could unlike basketball where they score 160 points. Like sometimes it's 1-0 right at the end, and it's I get it. So there's a lot of opportunities for kids to grow and learn how to, you know, accept, I got beat this time, but you got to get back on the horse. So hunting's a lot like that to me too, you know. Sure. So like fishing, I want so bad for my kids to enjoy fishing, right? And man, I just got skunked last year. Like I would take them and we caught a few, you know, like catfish, but like try to catch some bass or, you know, some game fish like that. We got skunked, and I thought, man, I'm gonna lose them. And then I realized, it's about us hanging out, you know. But it would be nice to catch about a 7-pound bass every once in a while.
Right.
So as you came through your years in the NHL, did you get involved in, or are you still involved in any kind of like ministries or anything that's associated with the league?
So I didn't, when I retired, I didn't, I'm not involved with the Predators per se, as far as, you know, I do some of the things, alumni, and, you know, they have golf tournaments and fundraisers and stuff. So I do some of that, but I am involved with a sports ministry called PAO, Professional Athletes Outreach. So they do, I guess about 5 years now we've done NHL. Football's at about 50. Baseball's been on for a number of years. So they do conferences for Christian athletes outside of, you know, the season. So in NHL, it's obviously in the summer. So bring in speakers and get guys connected. We had this after I retired, but we didn't have it during. But so get all the Christian guys throughout the league, which in hockey is a lot less than baseball and football. But that's an incredible ministry that I've been part of. And
Man, that's great.
And I've done some work with the hockey ministries as well, and
Yeah.
another ministry that does, chapels and camps and stuff. And but yeah, so
That just made me think about sports figures and I don't know if you guys have noticed this or not, but especially through the college football season, but I'm seeing it in basketball too, or even in the Super Bowl the other day. Man, it's so often now that the guys that they're interviewing right at the end of the game say, first of all, I want to give thanks to Jesus Christ, and I'm like, all right, I'm seeing a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I know that's nothing new. I mean, that's been going on for many decades, but we'll go back to what we were talking about earlier, where you might go through a valley, through a difficult time. And I almost feel like our culture in the last 4, 5, 6 years has went through this valley. And I feel like that that a lot of people who, in a lot of cases, shouldn't have been silent, I think maybe we're a little bit silenced. And I do think that we see how God works through those situations, is that he empowers people to go, no more, And so I'm seeing that more and more often, and it's empowering, man. I think it's great. I really do.
I think you're seeing some, high-profile figures more open about it. You look at Rogan's podcast and some of his guests.
Yeah.
And, people like that are, I think, well, I mean, partly COVID, I think maybe changed some people's outlook, changed their way of life a little bit, maybe started to question some things. And then I think, I just, what's going on in our country too, and in the world, and, and I think God's using all that, and, you see the revival of, the college in Kentucky.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, and seeing God work through it's really cool.
Yeah.
And you've seen it throughout, history, I don't know if it's every 40, 50 years or whatever it is, and maybe we're kind of seeing, or hopefully on the front end of maybe a revival where God,
Right.
But
that's what it seems like. And again, I think, paralleling with life, that we do the same thing, right? Like we'll go into this period of darkness or and in that he works in us, and then we come out of it praising his name, seems like that. I don't know. Again, culture seems to sort of emulate that as well. So
Sure. So, and what the enemy means for evil, God uses for good, right? So as dark as some things seem, God always turns it, to be shown, show his glory.
yeah,
So,
all the time.
like the world seems like we're, it's geese in a windstorm, at times, but God's got a way to rein it in, with a lot of folks. Even, things on like Rogan will say, he'll refer the Bible, and he'll mention scripture sometimes in that. And I don't know where he is spiritually or whatever, but there's seeds planted. We're always out, no matter what conversation we're having with a believer, or especially a non-believer, we're always planting seeds. Through any extent of our conversations, right? So God's working, obviously.
yeah. We were just talking about that on the way here, is our mission field, and it's interesting. It really is. I guess like in this case today, here's our mission field, right? And so what do you? So you've been retired for a few years now.
Yeah,
huh?
I'm 7 now.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
So I would ask what you've been doing through retirement, but I got a pretty good idea in the fall what you've been up to.
Yeah, I do. I do a lot of hunting with my boys, and obviously with my wife's schedule, I'm have to be pretty available for boys and running them places, and then I'm involved with men's ministry at our church, and which is fun, and I'm actually planning right now to build out a retreat center at one of our farms south
That's
of here.
awesome.
So if it be for discipleship and for men's and women's marriage retreats and just a space that we're going to build out for that. So I'm excited about that.
That's great.
It's a few
man.
years out. We're in planning right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully break ground here soon. And but yeah, I love. I'm honestly, my life now is around church and school and our boys, and have a really good friend group of good friends, and Carrie and I have a couple that we meet with regularly as much as we can on our schedule. Just wise people that we need help as parents. We need help as we've been married almost 15 years, but it's like you got to put in the work, and so we're kind of I love to learn, but I'm just, God put a lot of good people around me to help, and because I need it. Without that, Lord.
I get it.
So, but yeah, I stay busy. We live on a farm here, and we love, trying to, do our own gardening and all that stuff. And and
you guys have horses?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
You a horse guy?
So, I mean, I don't ride a lot. I love horses.
Oh, I do
love
too.
I love watching them just driving in the driveway.
Yeah.
Our boys ride a little bit.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So,
But,
again, circling back around to the boys, man, I tell you what, there's nothing that gets me quite as fired up as thinking about raising and empowering young Christian boys, especially in this, climate that we're in.
Yeah.
Which I say that, there have been tumultuous times, a lot throughout the centuries. So it's not like we're in there's nothing new under the sun, as Solomon would say often. But I remember when we were having our first son, you go through sort of a difficult time where you're like, man, it's a crazy world to be bringing a human into. And people be, and I don't know about you guys, but I would often hear people say like, I wouldn't want to bring a kid into this world. Yeah. And man, my wife and I decided very clearly, before he was born, that this world's going to need this guy. And, cool. We got really focused on the fact that, of course you can't, tell his future, but we're going to give him the tools that he needs. And that's both of them. And that's, sort of our mission field is there as well. But man, I feel like that's something that man, we really need to. I don't necessarily mean the three of us need to focus. Of course, we do that, right? You focus on your kids, but getting the word out, like men, take care of your kids, that stirs me, man. It really does. And when I think about what you were talking about, building the place, and it's like having retreats where dads can take their kids and bond with them and leave their phones in the car and really focus on that kind of stuff. That's the building blocks,
Right.
And hunting, to me, circling back to hunting, I think we've lost with busyness too, but, really discipling our kids, I had someone a few years ago, was like, that was one of his regrets, a guy I met on our retreat. He's like, man, we were in church and we did the things, but I didn't intentionally disciple my boys, and you do that by training them in skills and living life through, hard times, good times, bad times, sports, emotions of sports, things that happen, tragedies. We've had a bit of a rough year this year. Our house, we had a major fire in our house, which was pretty scary for our boys, traumatic. And seeing God work through all that, this, he protected us, thank the Lord. And it took time for, to figure, our oldest thought he was running out the house saying, I don't want to die, terrified.
Yeah.
And this was not a little fire.
Yeah.
Sure.
We thought it was going to burn down our house.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then 6 months later, I'm with my boys in our Ranger here on the farm and run over our 6-year-old dog. It was his birthday.
Oh, man.
Our German Shepherd in front of the boys.
All the way. Yeah.
And them screaming and my oldest, this is my first best friend, working through that.
Yes.
But like you said, God does his thing and these are opportunities. And don't miss those opportunities to show God's faithfulness, and the comfort that he brings. And I'll forget Isaiah, after Zero passed away, a few months later, he's like, I pray for all those people that need comforting, and please comfort those people that have lost loved ones like you've comforted me through this, and he sees it.
There it is.
Yeah.
But it's tough.
Yeah.
But God uses all those, and what better opportunities and all the things that we can do is like, don't miss, walking through that. And from everything from emotions to, truth to,
Yeah.
But,
I mean, so many tragedies, right? And so many in tragedy, God will bring something awesome from it. Whatever, it's a fire, the dog, right? But in how we mold those instances, right? God shows us the good that can come from it, whether it be a death or an accident or whatever, and
losing a child, to me, I don't know that feeling. So, as a dog, there's a smaller, definitely, like, it was hard. That was the first time Carrie and I like cried together, like crap, but it's, you just move on. But like losing a child like that, man, you need the Lord.
I can't imagine.
Close loved ones or spouses, I don't want to compare that story to that.
Absolutely.
Sure,
But I do think, of course, we did not have this segue up into an off-ramp right here, but boy, does that not set it up to explain God's, decision to take his one and only, right? And to go, I'm going to let him die. And boy, when you put it into perspective from a father's, perspective, like, that's strong. And that, man, what a father. And I go back to Abraham and Isaac, and Abraham was ready to do it too. And they said, stop.
Yeah.
Putting yourself into those situations or to those thoughts, man. But that's a loving God right there. What that did for me, though, I don't know about you guys, but I spent a lot of years, and I will never, I'm sure, from a spiritual standpoint, fully understand the crucifixion and the resurrection. Like, I get it from a human mind standpoint. But it did occur to me one time that was also God's way of saying, I'm going to give my own son over to sin, and he's going to die. But the reason I'm doing that, besides it's for all of our forgiveness, is because I know the grave can't hold him, Like, this will be the valley that he's going to go through, but he's going to come out of it 3 days later. And we should always remember that, I feel like, through life, I pray to God none of us ever have to deal with that kind of situation, but I think that seems like the only thing that could get you through that would be to know that this is not the end.
Yep.
Right.
It's
to live that out too, right? Day in and day out.
Yeah.
The sacrifice and the love, to live that out into, is a good reminder we need all the time.
Yeah.
Man, how much he loves us.
Yeah.
For sure.
How much he loves us to offer that thing.
And through our sin too.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I know. I spoke not just recently to a group, and I led with, this is kind of funny, especially with you in here, because I led with this. Guys, I just want y'all to know that I will whoop every one of you in here. And they all were like, what's this guy talking about? And I said, how does that make you feel? Because I'm not going to try to, but what if I said I'd die for every one of you in here? It's a very different feeling that comes along with it. But then I led it on into, well, what if all of you guys were just the most hardened criminals on the planet? Like, I'm at a maximum security prison, and then I look out in that crowd and I go, I'd die for each and every one of you. And then from a human perspective, you go, these guys made their choice. I'm not dying for them. But from his perspective, he did exactly that. And that gives me cold chills too to think about that, man. Guys, I think we've covered as much as we're going to cover today, but that tells me we just need to do it again sometime. Sure. So,
Awesome.
Jimmy, thank you for joining us. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. I don't want to cut you off if you got anything else you need to add, but it's been a blessing.
Yeah. Me too.
Absolutely.
Enjoyed it.
And hopefully we can do it again sometime. We'll talk some more about hunting because I know I'm leaving some stuff out that I wanted to talk about. So, especially some more elk stories. But guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Appreciate
And till we see you again next time, you guys make sure you get out your Bible, put on your armor. God bless you. All right, guys, that was Mike Fisher, Jimmy Herman. How funny is that, kid? You still got about 80 stitches before you catch up with me. That's pretty great. Yeah, he threw some fists back in the day. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. What a blessing it was to sit and talk to those guys. Great Christian brothers. Again, share this with your friends. Spread the word, and we'll see you next week on Fully Armed.